Analysis from field experts who truly matter, because we believe in decoding the real picture for you. So you get a much wider and deeper understanding of stories from around the world, a 360-degree analysis. An award-winning documentary series, week after week.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Race to Power. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and on the show today, is there a rift between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu? Reportedly, there was a 1-hour-long, very tense call between the two of them, and Trump, later speaking to the media, said that Netanyahu listens to everything that he says. But is that really the case, or is it the other way around? Because it was Benjamin Netanyahu who talked Donald Trump into starting this war with Iran. And in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, the ruling TVK government of actor-turned-Chief Minister Vijay has expanded its cabinet less than 2 weeks after assuming charge in the state. But let's first start with this big story from the United States, where it appears on the face of it that all is not well between Donald Trump and also his closest ally, Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, according to a report by Axios, both leaders had a very tense exchange during their latest call. The report cites a source saying that Netanyahu's hair was literally on fire. The American president and the Israeli prime minister seemed to diverge over the future of the Iran war and also a potential peace agreement. Now, both leaders have discussed new efforts to reach a peace deal with Iran. The reports say that Netanyahu is skeptical and is leaning more towards a possible resumption of the war. However, Trump earlier had said that Netanyahu will do as he says on Iran. And this comes after Qatar and Saudi Arabia stepped into the mediation process along with Pakistan to try and bridge the gap between Washington and Tehran. The new effort reportedly focuses on a letter of intent that will trigger a 30-day ceasefire for negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. But Tehran seems to be playing hardball. According to a Reuters report, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has made it clear that the highly enriched uranium will remain inside the country. Now, Khamenei's stance on uranium could frustrate Donald Trump, who has said that the United States will take Iran's nuclear dust either by way of war or by way of a deal. Now, the Iranian media has reported that their government is in fact responding to a text that was submitted by the Americans. The fragile ceasefire between Iran and the United States depends on Iran's response. And Donald Trump has indicated that the war might resume if he does not get the right answers.
We don't get the right answers, it goes very quickly. We're all ready to go. We have to get the right answers. It would have to be a complete 100% good answers, and if we do, we save a lot of time, energy, and lives, most importantly.
Now, according to a CNN report, the American president had informed the Israeli prime minister that Washington will launch strikes on Iran. But within 24 hours, Trump called off the strikes after the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar sought more time to broker a deal. Now, Trump had said that he had paused the strikes until early next week, and this puts the delicate ceasefire between the United States and Iran under unprecedented strain. If both sides fail to bridge the gap, West Asia could be staring at a renewed and potentially a deadlier war. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Dr. Glenn Diesen, who is a professor of international relations at the University of Southeastern Norway, and he's joining us live on this broadcast all the way from Oslo. Professor Diesen, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, what do you make of these reports that are now doing the rounds that there was a very tense 1-hour-long call between Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu? And Donald Trump later came out and said that Netanyahu listens to everything that he says. Is that really the case? Or is it the other way around, that Trump so far had been listening to Benjamin Netanyahu, who wants to restart this war? In your assessment, do you think there is a rift between the two of them? And who do you think has an upper hand in dictating what happens in the Iran war?
Well, the overarching objective of the United States is still to defeat Iran. But I think the US has trapped itself, so it would like to pursue some strategic sequencing where it goes after other targets first, because at the moment it's not able to defeat the Iranians, and it needs a pause, while the Israelis would like to continue the war against Iran. The concern, I think, in Israel is that if the war is put on a prolonged pause, then it's going to be very difficult to get Trump to commit to yet another war at a later point in time, given how disastrous it has been this time around. So I get the impression that Netanyahu has a lot of influence over Trump, also because of the donors in the United States linked to the Israeli lobby. And but I do think that Trump is under some pressure to show that he is not a puppet of Netanyahu, because the America First movement in the US, which brought Trump to power, is very critical, or at least is divided now, over whether or not the US is putting Israel first. So he has a very strong motivation to show or pretend that he is more autonomous from Netanyahu than he actually is.
Right.
So while I think that the US and Israel tends to walk in lockstep over these issues, I think that because the war in Iran is so critical, the US core national interests are at jeopardy, it is possible that he will begin to break a bit.
Right. Now, as these negotiations continue, and as this threat that the Americans could resume the war always remains on Iran, do you think this is now going to push the Iranians to actually go pursue and possibly get a nuclear weapon? Because they could be looking at North Korea. No one messes with North Korea because the North Koreans have nuclear weapons. In the case of Iran, the reason why they've come under attack in this manner, and they could keep coming under attack if they don't have nuclear weapons, is because they do not have nuclear weapons. Is this now going to push the Iranians to actually detonate a nuclear weapon?
Well, I don't think they have to detonate one, but
in terms of a test.
I'm not even sure if. Yeah, I'm not even sure if. Oh, yeah, okay, sorry, but I'm not even sure if they will detonate one as becoming a nuclear power. I think it's more likely that they will remain a nuclear threshold power, or at least put together some rudimentary nuclear weapons, but still have the possibility of of denying that they exist, a little bit the way Israel has done. The problem, or the main reason for Iran to get a nuclear weapon, is because nuclear weapons are the ultimate deterrent. And the United States is pushing, it's made its intentions very clear. They would like to seek the destruction of Iran. They call it regime change, but without a backup government, it effectively means making another Syria or Libya out of Iran, if not breaking the country up completely. So the Iranians see this as an existential threat. They've been attacked twice within the span of a few months. So if they feel that their conventional capabilities is not enough to deter, then I think it is possible that they will pursue a nuclear weapon. And this is the great irony of the United States demanding that Iran should reduce its conventional ballistic missile and drone stockpile, because without a conventional deterrent, they need a nuclear deterrent.
They would effectively be signing off on their sovereignty if they start reducing their ballistic and drone capabilities. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Deason, for joining us with that perspective there. All right, now, the American President Donald Trump's administration is preparing for a fresh crackdown on undocumented immigrants in the country under a proposed new policy. Now, thousands of migrants could in fact soon face fines of up to $18,000 to cover the cost of their detention and deportation. Under the proposed policy by the Department of Homeland Security, the migrants could in fact be fined nearly about $18,000 to recover the cost of arresting, detaining and deporting them. The proposed fines will mainly target aliens, as the Trump administration, or rather the American administration, calls these undocumented immigrants who missed their immigration court hearings. In absentia, court had passed orders to deport the said immigrants. Reports now suggest that more than 23,000 people could be impacted by this move. The Congress had ordered the DHS last year to charge fines aimed at encouraging undocumented immigrants to voluntarily leave the country. But the DHS is now proposing to raise the amount from $5,130 to $18,000. The proposed increase comes after the US government had raised concerns over growing deportation and detention expenses. However, according to a recent report by USA Today, immigrant advocacy groups have slammed this move, accusing the Trump administration of targeting vulnerable communities and creating fear amongst the immigrants. The reports also state that critics' reservation that many immigrants miss court hearings due to language barriers and lack of legal support or failure to receive notices on time. The proposal has now been published in the Federal Register, with public comments invited until the 22nd of June. If implemented, the new fines will mark one of the toughest immigration enforcement measures under the Trump administration's renewed crackdown on illegal immigration. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got WION's correspondent Susan Tehrani, who's joining us live from New York. Susan, it appears that the focus is again back on immigrants. Tell us what's happening on that front.
Yeah, so undocumented immigration is a euphemism for people who entered the country illegally. These are illegal individuals who already have a deportation order from the courts. And while some of them go into hiding, others have self-deported. But the Trump administration now is trying to find an incentive because, as you mentioned earlier, the incentive was that if you self-deport, I think you get something around $1,000 to leave the country, and then you have the opportunity to come back. But now, if you have gone to court and there is a deportation order against you and you fail to leave, they're trying to make it more costly for those individuals. So they're saying that, you're going to not only be fined and charged, but then it'll make it very difficult, almost impossible for you to be able to come back to the United States legally. The justification they're making is that if we put the fines on these individuals, which there's no guarantee that, first of all, this is a proposal that it's going to happen. There's also no guarantee that these people would be able to even pay these fines. I mean, a lot of them are from very vulnerable communities coming to the United States hoping for a better life, albeit illegally. But they say if we impose these restrictions and possibly get the fines, then they can bring the charges and fines down for ICE and immigration that is already spending so much money trying to deport these individuals. So, the argument is both sides.
Right.
Rights groups say that these are vulnerable communities, they may not be able to do it. But then the Trump administration says, well, somehow we have to get illegal immigration, people that already have a court order, out of the country. So that's where we stand right now. Let's see if this proposal goes through, though.
Indeed, we'll have to wait and watch for that. Thank you very much, Susan Tehrani, for joining us with those updates there. Now, 2 days after Donald Trump and the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche announced a slush fund's creation, skeptics from across the political spectrum emerged to figure out the next steps to challenge its legality. Now, 2 police officers who defended the US Capitol on the 6th of January 2021 have gone to court. They're challenging what they call a presidential corrupt sham. The officers are not alone. Several skeptics are questioning the fund's legality. The critics say that it lacks transparency and proper oversight. But that is not the only controversy surrounding Donald Trump this week. In a separate and significant legal development, Trump has been granted permanent immunity from tax audits. The deal covers Donald Trump, his eldest sons, and also the Trump Organization. Critics are calling it a legal shield that puts the president above the law. The immunity agreement was reached to end a lawsuit, and Trump's team had filed a $10 billion suit against the Internal Revenue Service, or the IRS. Under the terms of the settlement, the IRS is now permanently barred from pursuing tax claims against Trump, his family, and also his businesses. Legal experts are alarmed. They say that no American president has ever received such sweeping protection from federal tax scrutiny. They warn the agreement sets a dangerous precedent. The Democrats have been swift to react. The Democrat Senator Ron Wyden has called the deal corrupt, and he said that this is an abuse of power.
The fact is, Republicans have turned down numerous...
Now, the White House has defended both developments, and the officials say that the slush fund will support law enforcement priorities. On the IRS deal, they say that it resolves a long-running and costly legal dispute. But the legal battles are far from over. The courts are expected to weigh in on both matters in the coming weeks. Now, the question that is being asked across America is fairly simple. Is the president above the law? Now, the Israeli National Security Minister's act of taunting, humiliating, and also pushing one of the detained Gaza Aid Flotilla activists down to the ground in a video has sparked some kind of international outrage. The incident involves the Israeli allies who are now condemning this Israeli cabinet minister's actions. Now, the Israeli far-right minister Itamar Ben-Gvir posted this video. This is what happened.
ברוכים הבאים לישראל, אנחנו בעלי הבית. ככה צריך.
All right, now this is the video that has sparked outrage where Ben-Gvir is pulling a woman activist from the back of her head and then pushes her violently down. He posted this video, and the activist in question was one of those who was detained from the Gaza Aid Flotilla. The incident has added to Israel's reputational cost and global isolation, following which countries like Italy, France, Canada, Belgium, the Netherlands, and even the United Kingdom, so the most staunchest of Israeli allies, have now summoned the Israeli envoys for further clarification, and they are demanding for apologies. The Israeli Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni was scathing, and she's denounced this attack on one of the activists in a video. She has condemned Ben-Gvir's conduct as inadmissible. The France's foreign ministry has lambasted the video and has called it unacceptable. Similarly, Spain's foreign minister has slammed this incident as undignified and humiliating. Furthermore, Belgium's deputy prime minister has lashed out at the incident, saying that it violates the basic standards of human dignity. The US ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, interestingly, has also condemned this far-right ultranationalist minister that has described his action to be despicable. In a post on social media platform X, the envoy said that Itamar Ben-Gvir had betrayed the dignity of his nation. Even the European Union has apparently lambasted the Israeli far-right minister. The European Commissioner said that no one should be punished for defending humanity. UK's Foreign Minister, Yvette Cooper, has said that she's truly appalled by the actions of the Israeli cabinet minister. Cooper said that the action violates the most basic standards of respect and dignity in the way that people should be treated. Meanwhile, Australia's foreign ministry has condemned Israel's degrading treatment of the detained activists from the Gaza-bound flotilla. The country's foreign minister, Penny Wong, has called the incident shocking and totally unacceptable. On the other hand, Canada and the Netherlands have said that they will summon their Israeli ambassadors, and Canada's foreign ministry has called the Israeli minister's actions as deeply troubling. While Netherlands' foreign ministry has criticized the far-right minister's video as shocking and simply unacceptable. Meanwhile, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung has called the detention of its citizens by Israel as a way out of line. He also questioned whether such actions can be allowed to pass without a protest. And amidst all this, the United Nations has called for the detained Gaza flotilla activists to be treated with dignity and respect. It's also added that anyone detained after the flotilla's interception by Israel must be treated well and in line with international regulations.
As I said, everyone who has been detained by the Israeli authorities who are members of the flotilla needs to be treated with respect and dignity, like anyone who is detained, and they need to be returned back to their homes immediately. And it is imperative that they be treated well along international regulations.
But according to a statement released by Israeli Foreign Ministry, the country has deported as many as about 430 foreign flotilla activists. The statement said that Israel will not permit any breach of its naval blockade in the Gaza Strip, which, remember, is again being denied all humanitarian aid. Now, the ruling TVK government has expanded its cabinet less than 2 weeks after assuming office in Tamil Nadu. Chief Minister Vijay, who took oath on the 10th of May along with 9 other ministers, has now inducted 23 more legislators into the cabinet. The swearing-in was administered by the governor in charge, R.V. Arlekar, at Lok Bhavan. And earlier in the week, the governor had approved the chief minister's recommendation, paving the way for cabinet expansion. And amongst those who are taking oath are Congress MLAs S. Rajesh Kumar and P. Viswanathan, who received the tourism and education portfolios respectively. This marks the Congress party's formal return to the Tamil Nadu cabinet after nearly about 59 years. The Congress MP Manikam Tagore said that the expansion will strengthen the India bloc politically and will help build momentum around Rahul Gandhi as the opposition's prime ministerial face. Meanwhile, member of All India Congress Committee Anthony Vigilius has said that the party will continue to extend support for Chief Minister Vijay even in the local polls. Listen.
We are really emotional at the moment. Someone in our colleagues is going to be part of the ministry after 59 years. We just lost our governance in 1967. This is an opportunity for us to review the party across, especially in southern districts of Tamil Nadu. And we are going to be very clear that in the coming election also, especially in the local body elections, we are going to be aligned with TVK.
The cabinet expansion reflects the coalition dynamics that brought TVK to power after the assembly elections. TVK emerged as the single largest party with about 108 seats, but fell short of a clear majority. The party subsequently formed the government with support from the Congress, the VCK, the left parties and the IUML. All right, now this is a new political storm that is brewing in India, and it is rooted in satire, but it is gaining some serious momentum online. The trigger behind it was the controversial comment that was made by the country's Chief Justice, Surya Kant. On the 15th of May, the Chief Justice, during a hearing, lashed out at the increasing fake degree holders and activists who target institutions. The Surya Kant took the comments a step further when he referred to youngsters and YouTubers and people who criticize institutions as cockroaches. The comments opened the floodgates of the backlash online, particularly from the youth. And amidst the backlash, Abhijit Dipke found the Cockroach Janta Party. Now, Dipke is a former social media worker for the Aam Aadmi Party. A manifesto has also been shared on the Cockroach Janta Party social media page, which includes agenda points like banning post-retirement Rajya Sabha seats for the Chief Justices, introducing 50% reservation for women in the Parliament without increasing the House strength, imposing a 20-year election ban on elected lawmakers who defect from their parties. In a matter of a few days, followers of the Cockroach Janta Party's Instagram page crossed those of the BJP, India's ruling party. Now, many online welcomed the satirical response to the Chief Justice's cockroach comment, and some also questioned the motive. Now, earlier in the day, the Cockroach Janta Party's social media platform X was withheld, but the owner created a new page shortly afterwards called The Cockroach is Back. Now, this political satirical movement is limited to digital media platforms alone, but it has begun a new wave of youth-centric political conversation, especially after these youths were called cockroach by the Chief Justice in that comment, which has become extremely controversial. And without it's a wrap on this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
In this rapidly changing world, is your health keeping pace? Best practices and breakthroughs busting the hype with real insights. The timeless power of yoga and ancient healing. Good food, good mood. Small steps, big impact. Your health matters. Only on WION World is One. Because nothing matters more.
In West Asia, every move shifts the world's balance. Wars, ceasefires, alliances, power never stands still. From Tehran to Tel Aviv, from Damascus to Doha, the West Asia Post cuts through the chaos to reveal the region that shapes the world. Because what happens in West Asia never stays in West Asia. This is the West Asia Post, the region's story, the world's impact.
Lights, camera, and artificial intelligence. Know all about the changing landscape of filmmaking. Take a look at the legacy of James Bond. And know what Colombian pop star Shakira is up to. All this and much more with me, Diksha Bisla, on WION at these times.
Get the latest updates.
Destroy their
Breaking
missiles
news.
and raise their...
Credible, clear, continuous. Experts across aisles. Diverse voices, one platform. WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Campaigns, elections, alliances, controversies, and power play. Stories that analyze global and domestic politics. A dedicated show with varied perspectives, expert take, citizens' voices, detailed ground reports, and in-depth coverage from political corridors of the world. This is Race to Power, only on WION.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching WION Fine Print. I'm Molly Gambhir. Let's start off with a quick look at the top stories making headlines. Iran's new leader has reportedly issued a directive that the country's near weapons-grade uranium should not be sent abroad, hardening Tehran's stance on one of the main US demands at the peace talks. The Russian president and his Belarusian counterpart observed via video conference nuclear drills being held by Russia and Belarus across the two countries. This has tensions with the European NATO. Ukraine claims its firefighters are battling fire sparked by Russian artillery shelling in the northeastern Sumy region, repeatedly interrupting operations because of the threat of renewed strikes. The NATO Secretary General says the alliance is prepared for every eventuality following a series of drone incursion incidents in the Baltic region. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif will visit China from May 23rd to 26th, during which he will be meeting Xi Jinping and the Chinese Premier. Beijing says Sharif's visit will be an important high-level exchange between the two countries. Gujarat's Valsad is staring at an alarming water crisis as residents are being forced to climb down wells over 45 feet deep, using ropes just to collect drinking water. The International Energy Agency warns of serious supply crunches in the oil market, says supply could enter the red zone by July or August if there is no progress in ending the West Asia war. Legendary goalkeeper coming out of international retirement for the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the 40-year-old will be Germany's first choice goalkeeper at the Showpiece event this summer. Iran is drawing a new red line. According to Reuters, its new leader insists enriched uranium will stay inside Iran no matter the pressure from the West. Our next report decoding if this could push the US to renew attacks on Iran.
Iran is digging its heels. It is sending a strong message to the US. Come what may, Iran will not back down.
Wherever it is necessary for us to fight, we'll fight. Wherever it is necessary to negotiate, we'll negotiate. The mission which the state has given to each person is the same mission which the state has given to us.
Reuters report says that Iran wants to keep enriched uranium at home. Its new leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, has reportedly issued a fresh directive. He believes sending uranium abroad will leave the country more vulnerable to future attacks. But experts say that Mojtaba Khamenei's order could further frustrate US President Donald Trump and complicate talks on ending the war. Trump has reportedly assured Israel that Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium will be sent out of Iran and that any peace deal must include a clause on this. For years, enriched uranium has been the heart of the global standoff. US and its Western allies have long accused Iran of seeking nuclear weapons. Tehran currently holds a stockpile of approximately 440 kg of uranium enriched to 60% purity, which is far less than what is needed to build a nuclear bomb. Though Iran denies seeking nuclear weapons, its parliamentary spokesperson Ibrahim Rizai recently warned that Iran could enrich uranium to 90% weapons-grade purity if attacked. The UN nuclear watchdog says there is no concrete proof that Iran is currently building a nuclear bomb. However, the agency views Tehran's vast stockpile as a serious concern. Now, a second warning light is flashing. New US Intel assessments report Iran is rebuilding its military-industrial network much faster than expected. Drone factories are reportedly said to be restarting. Missile production lines are believed to be coming back online. Iran's arsenal has already reshaped battlefields across the West Asia. The US fears the rebuilding effort could accelerate the arms race even further and threaten the Gulf nations. But Trump is keeping cards close to his chest. The US president is sending mixed signals on renewing strikes on Iran.
Right on the borderline, believe me. If we don't get the right answers, it goes very quickly. We're all ready to go. We have to get the right answers. It would have to be a complete 100% good answers. And if we do, we save a lot of time, energy, and lives, most importantly.
Iran says its nuclear ambitions are peaceful. The West says the danger is growing. With missiles, drones, and uranium now back at the center of the crisis, the countdown to the next confrontation may already be underway. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And for more on these developments and just to assess the situation at this point, joining us on the broadcast is a very special guest, Dr. Charles Kupchan. He is a senior fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations. Thanks very much for being here with us. I have to begin by asking you for your assessment of where things could possibly head from here onwards, because we have been looking at these key developments, of course, hinting at what could possibly also become a major escalation?
Well, I think it's safe to say that we're not in a very good place today. The Trump administration before this week was playing the long game, giving time for economic sanctions and the naval blockade to work to strangle the Iranian economy. But this week, Trump appears to have shifted. He now says, I was going to strike, but the Gulf neighbors, they talked me out of it. If we don't get a good answer by this weekend, then I'm going to say, let's go forward. The answer that came out today, as you were just reporting, was we're not going to export our highly enriched uranium. It's going to stay right here in Iran. That's a deal breaker for Donald Trump. And so I think that kind of announcement brings us one step closer to the restart of a full-scale war.
So basically, Iran drawing that new red line in a way, and according to Reuters, its leader insisting that the enriched uranium will stay within Iran no matter the pressure from the West. That's the message essentially that's being sent out. But could this really push the United States to renew attacks on Iran? At the same time, what exactly do you think is Trump's strategy looking like right now?
Well, in some ways, it's almost as if the Iranians are asking Trump to go back to war, right? They know full well that by saying we're not going to get rid of our highly enriched uranium, that leaves the Trump administration in a situation in which they have to increase the pressure. How do they increase the pressure? They go back to the bombing campaign. And so I do think that that's probably the next step for the United States, because the deals that are being offered by Iran, and we have several drafts passed to the United States through Pakistan, as far as we know, those draft deals don't really go far at all to meet U.S. demands. And so I think now the Trump administration's view is, well, the naval blockade isn't working. We're going to have to increase the pressure by adding to the naval blockade the restart of the bombing campaign. Given what you were just saying about Iran making significant progress in rebuilding the military infrastructure, given that a lot of drones and ballistic missiles were not destroyed, maybe they'll change the target set. Maybe Trump will, as he said earlier, start going after things like power plants and water facilities as a way of trying to shut Iran down.
All right, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us with those perspectives. Of course, a lot of uncertainty and question marks right now. And as we continue to monitor those developments, thanks very much for sharing your perspectives. All right, on that note, cutting straight across to Marco Rubio speaking. Listen in.
With India. They're a great ally, a great partner. We do a lot of good work with them. And so it is an important trip. I'm glad we're able to do it because I think there'll be a lot for us to talk about. And we'll also meet with the Quad there, which is important. Something, I think my first meeting as Secretary of State was with the Quad. So I believe I got sworn in, I did the thing in the lobby, and then I went right upstairs and that was my first meeting. And I'm glad we're able to do it now in India, and we're going to do one later in the year as well.
Can I come back to Iran finally, just the latest on the negotiations? The Iranian state media suggesting that the US proposal has closed some of the gaps or is potentially closing gaps.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get ahead of it. I think we've made some progress, but obviously we're dealing with a system that itself is a little fractured, so the Iranian system. And so, but that said, there'll be a couple visits. I understand, I believe the Pakistanis will be traveling to Tehran today, so hopefully that'll advance this further. The president's preference is to do a good deal. That's his preference. It's always been his preference. If we can get a good deal done, that would be great. I'm not here to tell you that it's going to happen for sure, but I'm here to tell you that we're going to do everything we can to see if we can get one. But if we can't get a good deal, the president's been clear. He has other options. I'm not going to elaborate on what those are, but everybody knows what those are. But his preference is always a deal. His preference is always an agreement. His preference is always diplomacy. So let's see if we can get there. There's some good signs, but we understand this. I don't want to be overly optimistic as well. So let's see what happens over the next few days.
And how do you intend to get Raul Castro to the United States?
Well, that was a grand jury in South Florida returned an indictment on Raul Castro. It has nothing to do with us. It's a grand jury. The evidence is clear. He admits to it. Raul Castro openly admits and brags about he shot down gave the order to shoot down civilian airplanes.
And how will you get him here?
Well, I'm not going to talk about how we're going to get him here. If we were trying to get him here, why would I say to the media what our plans are about that? I know you have to ask, but why would I answer that? The bottom line, there's a lot. At that point, he becomes a fugitive of American justice. And, well, you know, if there's an announcement, we'll tell you afterwards, not before. Okay, a couple more and I got to get on. Let's go.
Have conversations with Raul Castro's grandson, or
we remain. Here's the problem we have. We'll engage with the Cubans we have. Our ambassadors met with them recently. The CIA director was down there a few weeks ago. There's some State Department communications that occur. I just don't see a lot of, at the end of the day, they got to make a decision. Their system doesn't work, right? Their economic system does not work. It's broken. And you can't fix it with the current political system that's in place. They just don't comprehend how to do it. And it's a failed state. Like, their economy and the model they're trying to follow in Cuba doesn't resemble what anyone is doing anywhere in the world. I mean, there are other ways to do it that can provide the people of Cuba prosperity and opportunity. And it's what I said in the video to them the other day. You look at Cuba, in the Bahamas, in Jamaica, in the Dominican Republic, here in Florida. Cuba's surrounded by places where people have the right to do things like own a business, work for themselves, and be able to vote and for the leaders that govern them and or replace them. So if that's possible all around Cuba, why isn't it possible? Why is that not possible inside of Cuba? And right now there just doesn't seem to be people over there in charge of the regime who are in any way open to any of those changes. And the things they talk about economically are cosmetic in nature. They're not real, because that's what they've gotten used to all these years, is just buying time and waiting us out. They're not going to be able to wait us out or buy time. We're very serious, we're very focused. As I told you a moment ago in the context of Iran, the president's preference is always a negotiated agreement that's peaceful. That's always our preference. That remains our preference with Cuba. I'm just being honest with you. You know, the likelihood of that happening, given who we're dealing with right now, is not high. But if they have a change of heart, you know, we're here. And in the meantime, we'll keep doing what we need to do.
It sounds a lot like nation building. The administration doesn't believe in using force for nation building.
No, it's not nation building. It's not nation building. We are addressing something that's directly related to the national security of the United States. We are involved in places all over the world. You're asking me about Ebola. Important. But Ebola's in Africa. Cuba's 90 miles from our shores. So if you have a systemic meltdown in that country, which is where they're headed, their power plants, by the way, the reason why their power plants break down, they've been having blackouts for years. They had major blackouts last year, and they were still getting free Venezuelan oil. They haven't spent a penny in fixing their energy production, their electrical grid. They don't spend any money on that stuff. They pocket. They have a private military company named Gaesa who's sitting on $18 billion of assets, and not a penny of that transfers over to the state budget. Not a penny of that goes over to help the people of Cuba. Not 1 cent. So even if they had all the diesel in the world, they still wouldn't be able to generate energy because they've stolen the money and haven't invested in their energy infrastructure. So you're heading for a failed state. That's what you have now. But it's 90 miles from our shores. So we'll be impacted by the migratory crisis, by any violence and instability that happens there. It directly implicates the United States' national interest. So the future of Cuba belongs to the people of Cuba in terms of how they're governed, what the system looks like, and so forth. But the national security threat, that's 100% something we're going to focus on, because that's about America. All right, last one, guys.
The likelihood do you see the likelihood of the use of U.S. force to achieve a change in the Cuban political system as growing?
Our preference in Cuba and anywhere in the world is a negotiated diplomatic settlement, okay? And that's what I would say to you. The president always has the option to do whatever it takes to support and protect the national interest and national security of the United States. He has the option to do that if there's a threat to the national security of the United States. And he has shown his willingness to do that when he identifies such a threat. That said, our preference is always a diplomatic solution, always. And you know, a negotiated agreement. That's always our preference. But to answer your question, if there's a threat to the national security of the United States, the president not just has the right, he has the obligation to address that national security threat. All right, let's go. You guys ready?
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you.
All right, so a very critical messaging, in fact, coming in at a very significant time from Marco Rubio. And as we continue to monitor those developments, it's important to also watch out for what further reactions will be coming in on those developments, because the message that's being sent out by the United States right now is extremely significant. And moving on for now, Russia putting its military might on display on the third day of the joint nuclear drills with Belarus. What stands out here is the massive scale of the exercises, with around 64,000 troops from both nations taking part. And these now are the images showing the Russian forces preparing for combat missions, with Moscow mobilizing a massive array of military hardware. The drills are being monitored via video conference by the Russian president and his Belarusian counterpart. And according to Russia's defense ministry, the exercises involve more than 200 missile launchers, 140 aircraft, 73 warships, and 13 submarines, including 8 strategic nuclear submarines. Moscow saying Russian rocket forces, the Northern and Pacific fleets, long-range aviation units, as well as troops from the Leningrad and central military regions are all participating in the drills. And amid the exercises, Ukraine has stepped up security in regions bordering Belarus. Kiev fearing Russia could use Belarusian territory to open a new front from the north, including a possible push towards the capital. In fact, the Ukrainian president saying his country is preparing for every possible course of enemy action. However, Moscow has promised a responsible approach to its strategic nuclear arsenal. President Putin has also described strengthening the nuclear forces as an absolute priority. Earlier this month itself, Russia, remember, tested the intercontinental missile capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Moscow has already stationed the nuclear-capable Oreshnik missile system reportedly in Belarus, close to NATO borders. And the exercise is coming as Russia faces increasing Ukrainian drone and airstrikes targeting military sites and oil refineries. A giant rock from deep space appearing almost without warning. Astronomers spotted barely days before it races towards Earth. And now space agency is scrambling to track an asteroid flying closer than the moon itself. Our next report traces the countdown and also the science behind this all.
It begins as a faint flicker in darkness, a tiny moving dot buried inside millions of stars. Then computers flag it. Telescopes swing towards it. Scientists start calculating fast, because this object is not drifting quietly through deep space. It is hurtling straight through Earth's neighborhood. NASA and astronomers across the world are now tracking asteroid 2026 JH2, a newly discovered space rock that is making an extremely close pass by Earth on Monday. The asteroid was detected only around a week before its flyby, triggering urgent observations from multiple observatories. The asteroid is estimated to be between 50 and 115 feet wide, roughly the size of a school bus or even a basketball court. It will pass around 90,000 kilometers from Earth, that is far closer than the moon. Scientists insist there is no impact threat, but the late discovery is once again exposing a frightening reality. Space remains full of blind spots. This is not the first time Earth gets surprised. In 2013, the Chelyabinsk meteor exploded over Russia without warning. The blast shattered windows across the city and injured more than 1,500 people. The object was detected too late because it approached from the sun's direction. Asteroid 2019 OK slipped past Earth at just 72,000 kilometers. Astronomers spotted it only one day before its